Another famous celebrity who has spoken out about breast cancer is Angelina Jolie. Now, she'd made a very brave decision to explain about her preventive mastectomy. Have you ever considered having genetic testing?
Well, I don't have anything in my family which would suggest I'd be a candidate for genetic testing. I actually had a chat to the researchers today, and if there's a really high incidence of breast cancer in your family, sisters, aunts, mothers, grandparents, you could very well be somebody that could discuss with your doctor having the gene test. But it has to be said that it's probably only around 5% of the population who could carry that gene. However, if you do have that gene, the odds could be as high as 80% that you'll develop breast cancer or ovarian cancer in your lifetime. So certainly if you are somebody who could possibly be a gene carrier, it's worth attempting to get tested. It actually isn't an easy procedure to get that test. It's possibly easier in America than it is in the UK, but nevertheless, it's certainly something you should fight for. And at the Breast Cancer Research Foundation and at the Breast Cancer Awareness, we thoroughly commend somebody like Angelina Jolie for talking so publicly about something which is so private.
Could you have done what she has done?
I think if I carried the gene and I had my kids, I certainly would, yeah.
Now, like many people, breast cancer has affected your family. Tell me about your grandmother's illness and how she chose to deal with it and how that affected you.
Well, my grandmother had breast cancer just before I started working for the Estée Lauder companies in the early 90s. And it was really because of her experience with cancer, which didn't end well, that when Mrs. Evelyn Lauder asked me if I'd help her with her newly formed campaign, the Breast Cancer Awareness Campaign, and indeed with the foundation she'd formed, the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, it was because of my grandmother that I really felt so inspired to join her in her crusade. My grandmother, when she found her lump, she didn't tell anybody for a few years because she was embarrassed and scared. And that, in fact, was the very reason that Evelyn Lauder decided to form and do what she did, because she said, I see women around me dying and nobody's talking about it. Nobody seems to be doing enough about it, and I want to change that. And I really think that she did, because she co-invented the pink ribbon. And on a day like today, I've just sat down with 50 young women who are all bloggers, and it would be impossible for anybody of that generation not to have heard of the pink ribbon campaign, especially in the developed world. But people obviously hadn't in the early 90s, it didn't exist. And in fact, Evelyn said something very interesting to me. She said, I'm so inspired by the AIDS activists. They have got their message out there. They had a red ribbon and they had fabulous fundraisers, and that's what she put in place for us, and that's exactly what we have now too. But for me, I started on that path because of my grandmother's experiences.